let's move into the game. Not that there's going to be, there's a lot of the games this weekend, but there's one involving the team up north against Ohio, or as we like to call them, Ohio State and Michigan. Now, the winner, of course, will go to the Big Ten title game. And this will be just the 10th time in major college football history that two teams enter a regular season matchup at 11-0 or better, and just the 5th since 1900. So it's going to be the third, actually, involving Ohio State and Michigan, and all of them have come since 2006. Historically, it has not been very kind to the Buckeyes in Ann Arbor. When these two teams are both in the top 5, Buckeyes are just 1-3-1 in Ann Arbor, but they've been really good at home. Another historical aspect of this is that Michigan has not fared well in top 5 matchups at all. At all. They are just 7-24-1 in top 5 matchups in the poll era. So they have not done a great job. Statistically speaking, there's a lot of similarities here. Scoring offense, Michigan's 38, Ohio State's 33. Total offense, Michigan's 400, Ohio State's 430. Rushing offense, 171 to 145. Michigan to Ohio State. Scoring defense, 9 points versus 9.3 points. Like, these teams match up really well. They're built to beat each other. Okay? They're built to beat each other. And that's what's so awesome about this matchup. Okay? So, let's start with the big question, number 1. Which team is more effective running the football? Now, Michigan has not really been a big play threat on the ground this year. They've kind of churned it out a little bit more than they have in the past. They're averaging about 4.5 yards a carry. That's 54th in college football. And Ohio State, meanwhile, even in spite of being without their starting running back for a handful of games, they're at about 4.33. They're 69th. So you got 54th and 69th as far as yards per carry. But these are going to be some elite defenses that they're going to be going up against. And Blake Corum is healthy for the first time heading into the Ohio State game in his career. He had an ankle injury that kind of limited his touches in 21, and last year he hurt his knee in the game prior to the Ohio State game. So he's never really been healthy for this one, so you would imagine that he's pent up and excited, ready to roll against the Buckeyes in the biggest matchup of their season. TreVeyon Henderson on the other hand for Ohio State. You just kind of become used to watching him just take off in the open field, right? I mean, when he does it, it's like, oh, well, TreVeyon Henderson went the distance again. It's not that big a deal. Like, he only went for a 70-yard gain. You just become used to it to an extent. And he was very efficient last week, 15 carries, nearly $150. He's had 300-yard games in the last month. So he's moving in the right direction. You could tell that he's healthier. I mean, he is the home run hitter. And against maybe the best defense, or at least one of the best defenses that Ohio State's faced this year, he was arguably the difference against Notre Dame. With his big run that kind of broke things open just a little bit. A couple matchups within the matchup. TreVeyon Henderson, already talked about him a little bit against Michigan's front seven. That's going to be fascinating. Really fascinating. Then we want to take it just one step further. TreVeyon Henderson and maybe the Michigan pass rush against TreVeyon Henderson running the football and Ohio State's offensive line. So basically, Michigan's defense against Ohio State's offensive line. Well, looking at how things have gone for Ohio State along the front, I think their offensive line has some flaws. But it was a little evident based on their willingness to go to the portal to try to land 2 starting tackles. They swung and missed on a couple guys. They ended up getting Simmons, who's been solid, and then they had to plug and play Josh Fryer at right tackle, who's given up quite a bit of pressure this year. The other question was at center coming into the season. Who would be able to man that spot? Whippler decided to leave. Well, in comes Carson Hinsman. He's given up some problems up the middle as well. So this is a group that can be at times susceptible to an elite pass rush. And if you look at what Michigan did last week and what they've done all year long, they are wreaking havoc against a lot of teams, not just against the run, but also in the pass rush as well. They have edge rushers that are just a handful, like Braden McGregor, edge rusher that's outstanding. A couple of defensive tackles, Mason Graham, Cam Good. These guys are outstanding. More edge rushers, Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart. These guys are all, they just roll them. I mean, it's like every series, it's like a different guy. So they're always fresh. They've been rolling all season long, so they're super fresh for this one. Fatigue will not be a factor for Michigan's pass rush, and I think they do have a considerable advantage against Ohio State's offensive line. Now let's go to Michigan's offensive line against Ohio State's defensive line. One of the questions for Michigan, and they've been a strong unit that has improved gradually over the course of the season up until the last 2 weeks. Now, the offensive line the last couple of weeks, for whatever reason, has just not really played very well. And much like Ohio State, it's the right tackle that can at times be a little bit of a problem. Now, that's Carson Barnhart, not calling him out, but he's a guy that they need to be real mindful of. And I would think that Ohio State's probably trying to attack that side. So you can leave a tight end over there. You can leave running backs in over there. You can help him out a lot, and you might have to. But that's going to be a position I'm watching closely. Now, it also sounds like Ladarius Henderson, who missed last week, should be good to go at left tackle. But the tackle spot is of a little bit of concern if I'm the Michigan Wolverines. The good news is that Ohio State might be a team that can pressure you, and they might be a team that has talent, but it hasn't necessarily matriculated into performance on a regular basis. Like Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, they're talented guys, but their impact on the game, I would think for guys with that skill set and that talent level, should be higher. I feel like those guys could take over the game every week, and it just doesn't happen. So I'll be watching those guys very closely. Both teams, frankly, I'll be watching both sets of tackles, both Michigan's and Ohio State's, against the defensive lines they'll be facing off against, because that could very easily determine the game. Another fantastic matchup in the game is cornerback Will Johnson against Marvin Harrison. Now, Will Johnson has given up just 8 receptions this season as the primary cover guy. Meanwhile, we know bigger the game, better it seems like Marvin Harrison plays. He is arguably the best player on both teams. So if the opportunity presents itself and he's in a one-on-one, can he win on a consistent enough basis against Will Johnson, who's an elite All-American caliber corner in one-on-one situations? But not to lose sight of that one, because if Will Johnson wins that one, that's a huge, huge, huge coup for the Michigan Wolverines. I don't think he will. I don't know if anyone can, but I know he's sure going to try. The inside slot guy is also going to be very important. That's Mike Sainristil. He's going to be working against Emeka Egbuka. Now, Sainristil has really improved from year 1 to year 2. He was at one point a receiver and went back and forth. He's played slot corner. He's played on the perimeter. He's been a situational blitz guy, but he's really kind of come into his own and had maybe the best performance of his career last week against Maryland, a couple interceptions. And Egbuka has missed a couple games this year, but when he's had to be there, he's been there. He seems to always step up when the opportunity presents itself. A la big play against Notre Dame. He hitches it up right there before the goal line on 3rd and 17 or whatever it was for the first down. So Egbuka against Sainristil is also a massive matchup. And then finally, let's talk about the quarterbacks. I know they're not going to be going face-to-face, right? I understand that. Let's talk about J.J. McCarthy's matchup first. J.J. McCarthy, Roman Wilson needs to be at 100%, hopefully. A little banged up last week. Colston Loveland, I think, is going to need to be at a high level in this game as well. Those two guys need to play great. And then if you look at Cornelius Johnson, he was a huge difference maker in the game last year on a catch and run. Will he be a difference maker again? Samaj Morgan, Tyler Morris, other guys, you're not going to be super scared of those guys. So I think the big thing is Roman Wilson at 100%? If not, can Colston Loveland and Cornelius Johnson handle the workload? And J.J. McCarthy's got to play better. He did not play well last week. That was an anomaly performance because he's usually been pretty steady, but he has got to play better than he did last week, especially against a group that has not given up very many big plays. They're number 1 in pass defense, just 144 yards a game given up, and they are first in the fewest plays that have gone for 40-plus yards in college football. They've given up just one of those. So the things that they won with last year are probably not going to be the same things that they win with this year, worth noting. And then on the other side, Kyle McCord, I think, has grown. I don't think he's C.J. Stroud. I don't think he's Bo Nix. I don't think he's Michael Penix. I don't think he's Jaden Daniels. But I think Kyle McCord understands who Kyle McCord is. I think he knows what he can get away with. But the things that we've seen at times from him this year, he cannot be gun shy in this game. He's got to cut it loose. He has to harness the fear of failure and just rip it. This might be a game that's decided by punts and field position. I think it's going to be a low-scoring outfit. I do. I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game where the teams match up really, really well, have tons of respect for both sides defensively. I think it's going to be a low-scoring matchup. So don't take the unnecessary risk, but if it's there, trust yourself. You can do it. He has enough talent to be able to do it. I was very much leaning in heavily in favor of Michigan in this one, but seeing them play the last couple of weeks, I have softened my stance. I think Michigan wins the game, but I think it's going to be a close one. I'm thinking nail biter, and I'm thinking low scoring. 21-17, 17-14, 24-21 in that vicinity. Low scoring game, great defenses, two coaches that want to play ball control, limit possessions. With Jim Harbaugh being out, Sharon Moore's in charge, so it's probably going to be a little more conservative. I think Ryan Day will probably try to press the gas a little bit to get them out of their comfort zone, but I think it's going to be a tremendous game with two of the best teams in college football going toe-to-toe.